My wife said, "My parents are coming over, so you need to stay at a hotel. You don't belong in our family photos." I said, "Understood." Then I called the landlord, canceled the lease in my name, and handed her the eviction notice. She called me crying when the power was cut during their visit. Original post: I, 34 male, have spent the last 5 years being the invisible scaffolding of my wife's life. I'm a supply chain manager for a pharmaceutical distributor. My job is literally to make sure things are where they need to be, when they need to be there, without anyone noticing the chaos that happens in between. It's a thankless profession, and apparently, it was excellent training for my marriage to Courtney, 31. Courtney comes from a family that believes aesthetic is a moral imperative. Her parents, Richard and Eleanor, are the kind of people who have white furniture in every room, and actually keep it white. They look at me, a guy who grew up in a row home in Philly, went to a state college and likes to fix his own car, like I'm a smudge on their pristine lens. We live in a luxury apartment complex downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows, concierge, the works. When we moved in 3 years ago, Courtney's credit was in the toilet because she tried to launch a curated lifestyle box subscription service that failed spectacularly. Richard, her father, refused to co-sign the lease. He gave me a lecture over a scotch I paid for about how struggle builds character and that he wasn't going to bail her out. So the lease is in my name, just mine. The utilities are in my name. The renter's insurance is in my name. Courtney pays for her personal expenses and the lease on her Audi, which Richard did co-sign for, hypocritically. But the roof over our heads is legally my responsibility. The event happened earlier this week. I came home after a 12-hour shift dealing with a logistics nightmare involving refrigerated trucks in the Midwest. I was exhausted. I walked in, dropped my keys, and saw Courtney arranging hydrangeas in the foyer. "Mom and Dad are coming this weekend," she said, not looking up from the flowers. "I know," I said. "I bought that gin Eleanor likes, and I booked a reservation at the steakhouse Richard tolerates." She finally looked at me. It wasn't a look of gratitude. It was a look of calculation. She was sizing me up and I was coming up short. "Actually," she said, wiping her hands on a linen towel, "we need to talk about the logistics. I think it would be better if you stayed at a hotel for the weekend." I blinked. My brain was still processing shipping manifests, so I assumed I misheard. "What?" "The hotel," she repeated, slower this time, as if speaking to a child. "The Marriott is nice. Or the Kimpton, just for 3 nights. "Why am I being exiled from my own apartment?" "Because we're doing the official family portraits," she said, gesturing vaguely to the living room. "For the holiday cards and the dynasty wall. Eleanor wants to recreate the photos from when we were kids. Just the core 4. Me, Mom, Dad, and Morgan, her younger sister." "Okay," I said, feeling a cold knot tighten in my stomach. "I can step out for a few hours while you take photos. I don't need to sleep at a hotel." "It's not just the photos, Jason," she sighed, the exasperation leaking out. "It's the vibe. You know how you and Dad get. You exist in different worlds. We want a pure family weekend, nostalgia, bonding, and honestly, you don't fit the aesthetic we're going for. You're a bit rustic. It clashes with the theme." "Rustic," I repeated. "I pay the rent on this theme. I pay the electric bill that powers the ring lights for this theme. But I'm too rustic to be seen in it." "Don't make this about money," she snapped. "That's so tacky. It's just 3 days. Treat it like a vacation. Go get room service. Watch your sports games. Just give us this space, please." "So to be clear," I said, keeping my voice dead level, "you want me to leave my home, which I pay for, so you can pretend I don't exist for a photo op?" "You're not leaving," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're just pausing. You're still my husband, just not for this weekend." I looked at her. I looked at the apartment I had worked double shifts to afford. I looked at the woman I had supported through 3 failed entrepreneurial ventures. The anger didn't hit me like a wave. It hit me like a glacier. Slow, heavy, permanent. "Understood," I said. She beamed. "Thank you. I knew you'd get it. Oh, and can you make sure the guest bath is fully stocked before you go?" Mom hates running out of towels. I walked into the bedroom. I didn't pack a bag for the weekend. I packed my life. I waited until she went to her Pilates class the next morning. I called the leasing office. I have a good relationship with the property manager, Marcus. Wait, no, Marcus. Let's go with Dave. Dave likes me because I don't complain about noise and I pay rent 3 days early. Hey Dave, I said. I need to exercise the immediate termination clause in my lease. Everything okay, Jason? Dave asked. Personal emergency. I'm willing to pay the break fee. 2 months, rent, right? Yeah, that's the contract, but you have to surrender possession immediately. Keys turned in, place vacant of your property. Consider it done by tomorrow morning, I said. It cost me $6,000 to break that lease. I wrote the check without a flinch. It was the price of freedom. I spent the rest of the day moving. I hired a same-day moving crew. Logistics is my specialty, remember? I had them pack my office, my clothes, my electronics, my kitchen gadgets, and the furniture I had purchased before the marriage, which was most of the good stuff. I moved it all into a storage unit. By the time Courtney got home, the apartment looked curated, minimalist, because half the stuff was gone. She didn't even notice. She was too busy on the phone with her sister discussing color palettes. The next morning, the day of the visit, I woke up before her. I put the keys on the kitchen counter. Next to the keys, I left a large manila envelope. Inside was the receipt for the lease termination fee and the official notice of surrender of premises. I also logged into the utility portal on my phone. Electric, stop service. Date today. Internet, stop service. Date today. Gas, stop service. Date today. Our building has smart meters. They don't need to send a guy out. They can kill the juice remotely. I scheduled it for mid-morning, just enough time for the in-laws to arrive and get settled. I left a note on top of the envelope. Since I don't fit the aesthetic of this family, I've decided to remove myself entirely. The lease is terminated. The utilities are canceled. The apartment is legally vacant as of this morning. Enjoy the natural light for your photos. The rustic husband. I walked out the door. I didn't look back. I checked into a business hell across town, not the Marriott, she suggested. I turned off my location sharing. I ordered a coffee. Then, I waited. Update 1, I didn't have to wait long for the fireworks. My phone started buzzing around noon. I had silenced the ringer, but watching the notifications stack up was a dark sort of entertainment. 18 missed calls from Courtney, 5 missed calls from Richard, 3 missed calls from Eleanor, 12 text messages. I let them marinate for a bit. I wanted the full picture before I engaged. I ordered lunch, a burger, very rustic, and scrolled through the texts. Where's the coffee maker? The expensive one? Did you take it? The Wi-Fi is down. I can't stream the mood playlist, fix it. The AC just shut off. It's getting stuffy in here. What is going on? Found your note. Is this a sick joke? Call me. Jason, this is childish behavior. Turn the power back on immediately. We have guests coming. We are trying to do makeup and there is no light in the bathroom. Unacceptable. Dave just knocked on the door. He says we have to leave? He says you surrendered the apartment? That was the one I was waiting for. Dave, efficient as ever. I finally answered the phone when Courtney called for the 19th time. I put it on speaker so I could eat my fries. Jason. She wasn't crying yet, but she was at that pitch just before the tears start. Pure, unadulterated rage. What have you done? Dave is standing here with a clipboard telling my father we are trespassing. Hello, Courtney, I said, dipping a fry in ketchup. I hope the family reunion is going well. Stop it. Stop it right now. Why is the power out? Why did you cancel the lease? You asked me to leave, I said calmly. You said I didn't belong in the family picture. You said I didn't fit the aesthetic. I realized you were right. I don't belong there. Since the apartment lease is in my name and only my name, I decided to remove myself from the equation entirely. I meant for the weekend, not forever, and certainly not while my parents are here. You can't have it both ways, I said. You can't treat me like a wallet that pays for your stage sets and then kick me off the stage when the curtain goes up. I paid the break fee. I'm out. Legally, that apartment is back in the possession of the management company. But where are we supposed to go? She shrieked. We have the photographer coming in an hour. We have outfits. I hear the Marriott is nice, I said. Or maybe Richard can use some of that character-building wisdom to figure out a solution. He's a smart guy. He is threatening to sue you. He's screaming at Dave. Let me talk to Dave, I said. There was a shuffling noise and then Dave's voice came on the line. He sounded tired. Hey Jason, I've got a situation here. Mr. Hawthorne is refusing to vacate. He says he has tenant rights. He's not a tenant, Dave. You have the lease. You have the termination receipt. He's a guest of a tenant who no longer resides there. And the power is out because the account holder, me, closed the account. Yeah, that's what I told him, Dave sighed. Look, the liability here is a nightmare. No lights, no insurance on the unit anymore. I'm gonna have to call PD if they don't move. I can't have squatters in a dark unit. Do what you have to do, Dave. I'm sorry for the hassle. Not your fault, man. Enjoy your freedom. I hung up. About 2 hours later, I got a text from a neighbor I'm friendly with. Let's call him Mike. Mike sent a video. It showed the Hawthorne clan standing on the sidewalk in front of the building. It was a hot day, unseasonably warm for the season. Courtney was sitting on a pile of Louis Vuitton luggage, weeping into her hands. Eleanor was fanning herself with a clutch purse, looking like she smelled something rotting. Richard was red-faced, yelling at a police officer who looked entirely unimpressed. And the best part? The photographer, a guy with a massive camera rig, was packing his gear into his hatchback, clearly bailing on the gig because there was nowhere to shoot. I zoomed in on the video. The aesthetic was definitely ruined. That night, I received an email from Richard. Subject: demand for reimbursement. Jason, your stunt today was reprehensible. You have humiliated my daughter and inconvenienced my wife. We have checked into the Four Seasons. I expect you to reimburse me for the cost of 2 suites for 3 nights, plus the photographer's cancellation fee. The total is $5,800. Send the wire immediately, or I will involve my legal team. I replied, Richard, I did not book the Four Seasons. I did not hire the photographer. I am not responsible for your lifestyle choices. As you once told me, facing the consequences of financial decisions is character building. Consider this a building exercise. Do not contact me again. I slept better that night than I have in 3 years. Update 2. It's been a week since the great eviction. I've moved from the hotel into a short-term rental, a loft in the industrial district. Exposed brick, concrete floors. Very rustic. I love it. The silence from Courtney lasted exactly 24 hours after the sidewalk incident. Then, the panic set in. She realized that without the apartment and without my income, she is effectively homeless and broke. Remember, her job is being a freelance brand consultant for startups that pay her in exposure and product samples. She started blowing up my phone with alternating strategies. First came the guilt. Courtney, I can't believe you threw away our marriage over a photo. You're so fragile. If you really loved me, you would have understood that families are complicated. I didn't throw it away over a photo. I threw it away because you view me as an accessory that clashes with your decor. I'm a person, Courtney. I'm the person who kept a roof over your head. I was stressed. Mom put so much pressure on me to look perfect. You know how she is. I was just trying to survive the weekend. Me and your survival strategy was to kick me out? You chose them. You wanted to be with them. Now you are. Then came the bargaining. Okay. Look, Dad is willing to forgive the hotel bill if you apologize and sign a new lease. We can find a different apartment. Maybe something with 2 bathrooms? He says he might even co-sign this time, but you pay. I actually laughed out loud at that one. The audacity is truly a renewable resource for these people. Me, no. Then the dirty tricks began. I went to work on Tuesday. I got called into the VP's office. Apparently, someone had filed an anonymous ethics complaint claiming I was embezzling company funds to pay for luxury hotels and secret apartments. They had sent a tip to the audit line. Fortunately, my boss knows me. He knows I'm the guy who flags a 50-cent discrepancy in shipping costs. We got this complaint, the VP said, sliding a paper across the desk. It's oddly specific about your housing situation. My father-in-law is upset that I left his daughter, I said. I'm going through a divorce. I can show you my bank statements. The lease break fee, the hotel, the new rental, it all came from my savings. I pulled up my banking app right there. The VP glanced at it. Okay, looks like personal drama. Keep it out of the office, Jason. I'm trying, I said. Also, the VP added, the complaint came from an email address, or Hawthorne Business. Not very anonymous. Richard isn't as smart as he thinks he is. The next day, Courtney tried to access our joint savings account. Now, full disclosure, I had a separate savings account she didn't know about. the character building fund. But we did have a joint checking account for household expenses. I had drained my contribution to that account the day I left. I left her contribution there, about $400. She tried to transfer $5,000 out of it to pay off her credit card bill. The transfer failed. She sent me a text that was just a string of flame emojis. "You stole my money." Me. I took my paycheck back. The money in there is what you deposited. Spend it wisely. Then the social media assault started. Morgan, the younger sister, posted a TikTok. Of course she did. She sat in her car, crying fake tears, telling a story about how her abusive brother-in-law abandoned her sister on the streets with literally nothing, just to be spiteful. She didn't mention the eviction notice. She didn't mention the request for me to leave. She framed it as I just snapped and locked them out. She named me, first name and last initial. If anyone knows Jason in logistics, watch out, he's a monster. I didn't engage in the comments. I did something better. I hired a lawyer. Let's call her Sarah. No wait, user said no Sarah. Let's call her Ms. Vance. Ms. Vance is a shark in a silk suit. I showed her the TikTok. I showed her the lease termination. I showed her the texts where Courtney asked me to leave. Miss Vance sent a cease and desist letter to Morgan, Richard, and Courtney. It was a thing of beauty. It outlined the timeline, the legal right to terminate the lease, and the defamation occurring online. It demanded the video be taken down immediately, or we would sue for damages to my professional reputation. It also noted that since Richard had filed a false ethics complaint at my work, which is tortious interference, we were prepared to drag that into court too. The video was down in an hour, but the real escalation happened yesterday. I went to my storage unit to grab a few boxes of winter clothes. My code didn't work. I went to the front desk. The manager looked at his computer. Mr. My last name, your wife was here yesterday. She had the spare key and the access code. She said you guys were consolidating units. My blood ran cold. I had forgotten she had a picture of my master password list in her emergency file on her phone. What did she take? She had a moving truck. She took a lot. Furniture, boxes. I raced to the Hawthorne's current location. They are staying at a rented Airbnb now, having been kicked out of the Four Seasons because Richard started arguing about the bill there too. I saw the moving truck in the driveway. They were unloading my furniture, my leather armchair, my vintage turntable, my collection of first edition sci-fi novels. They were trying to set up the Airbnb with my stuff. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I called the police. I'd like to report a theft, I said. I have the receipts for the items, the storage unit contract in my name, and witnesses. When the cops arrived, it was humiliating for them. Courtney tried to claim it was marital property. I pulled up the receipts. Most of these items were purchased before the marriage. That turntable is from 2015, I told the officer. We met in 2019. It's not marital property, it's mine. The officer looked at Richard, who was holding my speakers. Sir, put the speakers down. Unless you have a receipt, this is theft. They had to load everything back onto the truck. I watched from my car. Courtney stood in the driveway, screaming that I was petty. It's just stuff, Jason. We needed furniture. We have nowhere to sit. Go to IKEA, I said. I took my stuff back to a new storage unit with a new code. Miss Vance filed the divorce petition the next morning. We aren't asking for much, just a clean break. But given their behavior, we are also asking for legal fees. Update 3. The resolution. It has been 6 months. The dust has settled and the air is clear. The divorce was finalized last week. It was a fight, but not the way they wanted it to be. They wanted a dramatic, screaming court battle. Miss Vance gave them a spreadsheet. She laid out the financials. Since the lease was in my name and I paid it, Courtney had no claim to the equity of a rental, obviously. Since the furniture was largely premarital, she couldn't touch it. Since I had documentation of the hostile environment, the texts asking me to leave, the false ethics complaint, the judge was not sympathetic to her request for alimony. The judge, an older woman with zero patience for nonsense, actually asked Courtney, "Ma'am, you asked him to vacate the home so you could take photos without him. Did you expect him to keep paying for the house he wasn't allowed to be in?" Courtney mumbled something about family obligations. The judge denied spousal support. She granted a clean split of assets, which meant I kept my savings. And Courtney kept her car and the payments. The fallout for them. Richard and Eleanor went back to their main home in Connecticut. They are reportedly furious with Courtney for embarrassing the family. Turns out, Richard's finances weren't as robust as he pretended. The summer home was heavily mortgaged. He couldn't afford to keep subsidizing Courtney's life in the city and pay for his own legal battles. Apparently, I wasn't the only person he tried to stiff. Courtney had to move in with them. I heard from a mutual friend that she is living in her childhood bedroom at 31 years old. She's working at a local retail boutique now because the brand consulting gig dried up when she couldn't maintain the city chic lifestyle on Instagram. The photo. This is the part that brings me the most grim satisfaction. They did eventually take the family photo. They set it up in the Airbnb before they were kicked out of there too. Morgan posted it on Instagram a few weeks ago. It's a beautiful photo, technically. White linens, beige sweaters, perfect lighting. But if you look closely, the energy is off. Richard looks red-faced, probably high blood pressure. Eleanor looks strained. And Courtney, she looks small. She's sitting in the middle, smiling, but her eyes look terrified, and there's a gap, a distinct negative space next to her where a husband would usually stand. They tried to fill it with a large vase of pampas grass, but it just looks like a placeholder. The comments were turned off. My life. I'm still in the loft. I bought the unit, I have my furniture back, I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just testing the waters. I went on a date last week with a woman named Elena. She's an architect. We went back to my place for coffee. She looked around at the exposed brick, the leather chair, the stacks of books. This place has great bones, she said. It feels real, lived in. It's a bit rustic, I joked. Rustic is good, she smiled. It means it can handle a little mess. I also got a promotion at work. The VP who handled the ethics complaint was impressed with how meticulously I documented my defense. You keep good records, Jason, he said. We need that in upper management. The raise covered the cost of the lease break fee and then some. I saw Courtney one last time. I was walking out of the lawyer's office after signing the final decree. She was walking in to sign hers. She looked tired. Her aesthetic was fraying at the edges, roots showing, coat unbuttoned. She stopped. She looked like she wanted to say something mean, or maybe something begging. Was it worth it? She asked. Blowing up your life over a weekend. I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to fix anything for her. I didn't blow up my life, Courtney, I said. I just finally arranged it the way it should have been. We're family, she whispered, a last-ditch attempt at the old manipulation. No, I said. You have your family. I have my freedom. I walked past her, down the steps, and into the city. The sun was shining, the light was natural. And I looked just fine in it.